It's a little early. It's 7:15 in the morning. It's the 29th day of August in the year of our Lord Steve the Cat, 2023. It is about 68 degrees and hazy here at Site B. And I am your humble guide to all the tabletop role-playing game news, weather, and general internet nonsense. And it's story time with the OGGM, baby. So as you know, if you've been with my channel for a while, every year I do RPG a day and have done RPG a day pretty much since it started 10 years ago. And every year it pretty much asks 30 questions, one question for each day. And one of those questions is always basically most memorable encounter, most memorable D&D story, some variation of that. Your best D&D story. And every year for the past 10 years, 9 years, I have told the same story because pound for pound of all the D&D stories I can remember, this is the best one. So if you've heard it before, you're going to hear it again. And if you've never heard it before, here it is. Roger, Yoshida, and the Fireball. Now let me set the stage. Back when Cess Games and Anime in Ventura was still open, I ran a 9-year-long Freeport campaign based around the city of Freeport created by Green Ronin. Out of that campaign spun 2 spin-off campaigns. This story took place during one of the 2 spin-off campaigns and involved about 6 of my players, 2 of which were running brothers. That's important. So I was running a variation on the Against the Giants, Storm King's Thunder, Howl from the North, Giant Slayer mashup. I had mashed together Storm King's Thunder with the Giant Slayer adventure path from Pathfinder with a little known AD&D adventure called Howl from the North, which was basically a variation of Against the Giants. They had gone through the first chapter and the second chapter with some side quest. They defeated the first major giants, the Hill Giants. They were on their way to the Frost Giants. There was a stop off at a castle that was inhabited with Ifrits and ogres, and the various weapons the Ifrits were bringing from the elemental plane of fire to help the giants, amongst that being things like black powder. That's important. Remember that. So we get to the Frost Giants version. It's in the middle of this icy waste, of course. You know, the nearest icy village of nomads is like a day's travel from the Frost Giant. They get to the Frost Giant castle. It's this very Shakespearean thing. For some reason, it just felt very Shakespearean. So I sort of was I did like the Frost Giants were sort of doing a version of Hamlet in addition to the normal Frost Giant stuff, where the ghost of the king and the uncle was sitting on the throne of the Frost Giants, and they got involved with the politics for a little bit, but eventually they, in typical player fashion, you know, pulled the wrong lever, pissed off the wrong person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, ended up being on the run. So here we go. The 6 of them have gotten down to the lower hallways beneath the ice castle. And they're running around in these caves, trying to find a way out, knowing at any minute the Frost Giants and their minions will be upon them. And they come to basically a dead end. And from this dead end, they see there's like a little hole in the wall to the left. And that's pretty much it. They look through the little hole in the wall, and it looks into one of the caves where the frost bears, the giant bears, the dire bears, that the Frost Giants used as mounts, was hibernating. So they see this huge bear, elephant-sized bear, and it's 3 little cubs. And they think they see a way out, you know, because the dire frost bear had come into the caves from somewhere, so they figured, well, there's got to be a way out. Let's go through this hole and see if we can get out. Now, the hole's big enough for one of the smaller party members to go through, but not for the normal size. So the gnome alchemist is the only one big enough to go through the hole. So Tristan Richter's gnome alchemist goes through the hole, and he's trying to sneak past the dire bear to see if there's a way out. Sneak. So he rolls a really low number on his sneak. So the bear in its hibernated state hears the noise. So I roll the bear's, reaction. Sleepy bear, cave, gnome. I take into the fact that it is a gnome. And of course, gnomes have that weird ability, or had that weird ability, where they could talk to animals. And so, and just in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'll roll a d20. And I rolled a 20. So I was like, okay, small thing moving through cave, half asleep, hibernating bear, thinks it's one of its cubs getting up and walking away. That's what I figured the bear's thought pattern was. So the bear reaches out and scoops up Tristan Richter's gnome alchemist and puts it under her, because it thought in its half asleep mind that it was one of its cubs trying to get away. So now Tristan Richter is buried underneath the bear. It's on the bear's nest. There's the 3 other baby bears are curled up with him. He's perfectly safe. And to add to the irony, he is laying right on top of the bear's treasure. And I look at the treasure from the bear encounter, because this was in the module, these snow bears, and it had randomly stuff that I guess whoever designed the original adventure figured, why does it have this? Oh, it must have gotten it off somebody killed previously. So there was some gold and some other stuff and a few minor magic items, and then there was a rod of passage. This is important. There was a rod of passage. Now, if you don't know what a rod of passage does, it's a magic items in D&D that basically offers you ways to get out of situations. It casts teleport and D-door and other things. So thanks to the randomness of the adventure, they had another way to get out, because if all Tristan had to do was grab that rod and, figure out, if he could figure out what it was, he could use a charge to get out of there. So, but I didn't tell them, he was just laying it. I just told him that he felt things pressing against his back, like maybe he was laying on its treasure or something. Now, Tristan Richter's gnome alchemist is perfectly safe. Nothing bad is going to happen to it other than it being, in this warm, safe embrace of this bear. Tristan Richter's alchemist doesn't really know he's safe, but I've kind of given him the impression that he's safe. Now, mind you, none of the other players on the other side of the hole know this. All they saw was the gnome alchemist climb through the hole, get grabbed up by this elephant-sized dire bear, and scooped underneath the dire bear. As far as they know, Tristan Richter's character is doomed or dead. They have no idea that he's perfectly safe. So they're all looking through the hole, trying to figure out ways to save him. Do we throw a rope in? Do we make the hole bigger? Do we try and distract the bear? Blah, blah, blah. Typical arguing, typical noise. And of course, since they're making noise, I'm having to roll wandering monsters to see if their noise attracts any of the things that is chasing them. And of course it does. So they're all arguing, and then suddenly out of nowhere, I hear Roger Yoshida say, I cast Fireball into the room. I cast Fireball into the room. So I have to look up Fireball, and I believe this was Pathfinder we were playing, or maybe it was 4E. I don't remember. But basically, Roger was playing a fire mage who had the, all the different fire mage abilities. So his fireball would do the max amount of damage and fill up the maximum amount of space. So if he casts fireball, it's basically setting off a nuke, right? So he casts fireball into this room. And under the writings of the fireball in that version, the fireball had to fill as much space as it could, the 10 by 10 sphere. And he rolls 86 points of damage, some ridiculous amount of damage. All right, so I roll the bear's saving throw, fails, it's dead. I roll the cub's saving throws, fail, they're dead. Tristan Richter's alchemist has to roll his saving throw. And here we go. Here's where things get interesting. Tristan rolls a 1. So I'm like, Roger, how much damage do you do? And he's like, 86 points of damage. So Tristan is like, he's like, Mike, I'm dead. Okay. I am like negative. I am dead, beyond dead. 86 is like double what I can take. He had like 35, 40 hit points. All right, so he's dead. The bear's dead. The room is on fire. I'm like thinking like, okay, fire in this small little cave. So it's like a kiln, right? Basically, he's created this for this 1 second of fire. The fire is burning as hot and as bright as it can. Tristan Richter, what does your character have on him? And he goes, well, Mike, I'm an alchemist, remember? So I've got, and he lists off how many vials of alchemical fire he had, how many vials of oil he had, the fact that he is carrying around a barrel of blasting powder that they'd taken from the Ifrits, the fact that he had a couple sticks of what was basically dynamite that they'd taken from Robert, from these hellhounds that Robert was playing for a one-shot. Basically, this gnome alchemist was carrying a ton of explosives. So the fireball hits the black fire. He dies. The black fire goes off, which sets off everything else that Tristan Richter is carrying on him, which means I now have to also roll saving throws for all the items that the bear had in its inventory, because now Tristan's dead. The black powder's gone off. The fireball's getting bigger. I'm like, just you know, it feeds into the alchemist fire, which makes it bigger. It feeds into all the other flammable objects, including the black powder that Tristan Richter's gnome alchemist was carrying, making this huge, gigantic, roaring fire of doom. Every magic item that the bear had on it, including the Rod of Passage, failed its saving throw. So then I had to look up what happens when a magic item fails its saving throw, and the best I could figure out was the equivalent of a retributive strike, like when you break a staff. So that just cascades the fireball into even more, and it just starts this rolling cascade of fire that just starts backdrafting through the entire cave system. It's an apocalypse. The only way I can describe it is from the point of view of the village that's a day away, where they basically see this huge plume of fire coming out of the snow giant's castle. So everybody has to roll saving throws as this cascade of fire that is being fed by the black powder, fed by the broken magic items, fed by the alchemist fire. It's like one person fails their saving throw, they die, but they're not upset because everybody's just panicking and laughing. This is so much fun. Another person rolls a natural 20 on their saving throw, and I'm like, okay, you get shot out by the fire through one of these little air tubes, and you're like James Bond down the snow skiing, and like and they're arguing, and then Roger's character, one of the NPC, has basically a cloak that clasps the dimension door, and he's throwing people into the cloak to save them. And the character that's playing Roger's character's brother pushes Roger's character into the dimension door, sacrificing his life to make sure Roger's character survives. So they de-door out of the explosion as everything cascades to a beautiful final, and just fire and doom and explosions, and everybody's laughing. Everybody's just the excitement and the panic. You're just everybody's like, so they escape. Except for the people that died. They get to the snow village. They're all just laying there. Everybody's laughing. The laughter starts calming down. And I look at Roger, and I go, and he has through this whole thing, he has this ashen look on his face as he realized he has directly and indirectly killed 3 of the player characters. And I look at Roger. Nobody's upset. I mean, even Tristan was laughing hysterically. Nobody was upset. And I look at Roger, and he's ashen-faced. And I look at him, and I go, of all the spells you could have cast, why Fireball? Why did you cast Fireball? And he looks dead serious, ashen-faced. I thought Fireball was a precision spell. I thought Fireball was a precision spell. And just everybody's jaw drops, and we just start laughing hysterically again, and everybody's just like, ah, yes. And it's like, just of all the spells your character had to cast, you chose Fireball. I mean, any other spell on your list, but he's like, and he's just, I thought Fireball was a precision spell. So yeah, he cast an 86 hit point damage Fireball that filled this room like a fire in a kiln, started this chain reaction, but for some reason he thought Fireball was a direct, specific, precision target spell. So somehow in his mind he's mixed up Fireball with maybe Firebolt. I don't know. And just ashen face, and everybody else at the table is hilarious. I mean, we just come to this laughing, hysterical end. And what makes it more is just this look of utter shock on his face that he causes, and just, I thought Fireball was a precision spell. And like the week later when we talk about it, and again, he's like, I thought fire, for like a year, every time it came up, he thought Fireball was a precision spell. And he was in shock. Like he'd done something awful. And like nobody else cared. Tristan made a new character. The other player whose character died made a new character. The wizard player whose character sacrificed himself to keep Roger's character alive, he was like, okay, that character's a ghost haunting the ice. And he made a new character, and and gave me an NPC out of it too. And I was like, and it was fine. Nobody cared. But Roger, for like a year, carried that emotional damage of, I thought it was a precision spell. And if any time the story would come up, usually once a year when I tell the story, people were just dying in laughter. I thought Fireball was a precision spell. Now, eventually I lost touch with Roger Yoshida and a lot of those other players. And of course, they moved on, they had lives. But yeah, this is, it's hilarious, and it's tragedy that because he misread a spell or mixed up the spell in his mind, he just caused this massive damage. But the campaign went on. Nobody cared. It was fun. It was hilarious. And it made it more hilarious that every time he just had that ashen, shocked look on his face, that like he had did something so unbelievably wrong. Like, I thought Fireball was a precision spell. So it's just hilarious. Now, other things have happened to me as a DM that were, extremely memorable. Other things that have happened to me as a player that are extremely memorable. But I don't think any story I have told or experienced tops I thought Fireball was a precision spell. So there you go. Once a year, the Roger Yoshida and the Fireball story. I hope you appreciate it as much as I appreciate telling it. Roger Yoshida, if you're out there anywhere, buddy, miss playing with you. Love you. Tristan Richter, the other Tristan, Aaron Cornelius, that whole group. It was just the best game I ever ran. And that's the best story of the best game I ever ran with the best group of players I ever had. Sadly, we all went our separate ways, but, for 9 years, and out of those 9 years, yeah, that's my best story. What's your best game story? Let me know, or make a video about it and link it to me. If you appreciate content like this, let me know. If you never want to hear me do this ever again, let me know. Remember, this is your channel as much as mine. And since it is your channel, maybe you should take a moment and subscribe, because Fireball is a precision spell. No, it's not. He could have done anything, any other spell. Lightning Bolt. Like he could have done an 86 hit point lightning bolt and Tristan Fireball. Yeah. All right. See ya.